So I'm going to just walk you through the process that was on the instructions in that assignment. And I can do it really quickly because I've done this a whole bunch of times, but I don't expect you to be able to do it this quickly. It's kind of a useful skill to be able to do stuff like this because there's all sorts of tools, resources that are like this, even if they're, it's not just soil, like there's information about all sorts of stuff online. So make sure you have something to write with, something to write on, and then I'm just going to show you the process and then we'll get you the answers. So the first thing is I'm going to find Crescent Valley, and I know it's somewhere over here, and I know it's somewhere over here, and I know it's somewhere over here, and I found it. So here's Crescent Valley. I zoom in on that, and then it says you're supposed to click on the AOI rectangle. That's this button right here. And if you click on that and you highlight all of Crescent Valley's campus, which you can kind of see where it is. Like this isn't perfect because there's this overlap on the other side of Highland, but pretty much that's CV's campus. And what it does is it looks up all the soil information. It gets it all. And then if you click on this tab called Soil Map, it will pull up all the soils in our area. And you can actually see where they are on the map. Some of these numbers are hard to see, but like there's a little 15 right here, 15. And when I go over to this map unit legend on the left, yeah?
Just to make it easier for you in the future, you can just type in the address.
Oh yeah, I know. I did know that, but I was just following the instructions, so you could all see how it works. So 15 is whatever this is, right? And then you can look down here, 172, that's whatever this is. And what I asked you to do is find the 3 most abundant map unit names. So that would be this one, it's Amity Silt Loam. That's the name of a soil. And I can see it over here, it's right here. It's like mostly under stuff, right? It's under the parking lot and under the football field and under the building, but this little section of campus is supposedly a kind of soil called Amity Silt Loam. So write that down in your notebook. And then then this one is a big one too, 15. This is the most abundant one. Look at 15 takes up all of this space. It's kind of a weird shape, but it's called Bashaw clay. That's a really abundant kind of clay. And then the last one is Witham Silty Clay Loam. And that's this part over here. It's underneath like the varsity baseball field and part of the parking lot. And so you don't need to know this, but just for like a little bit of clarification, this is a standard system for naming soils in the U.S. And basically what they do is they figure out what the soils look like, and then they give it a name that is associated with a place. So some of you may know there's a little town on 99 called Amity, and the kind of the like master version of this soil is located up near that town of Amity. I don't know where Bashaw is or who Bashaw was, but we all know Witham because there's a Witham Hill Boulevard here in Corvallis, and there's a hill called Witham, was the name of a person who like owned a bunch of land in Corvallis in the 1800s. And so this soil is named after something that was like dug up on his land, on his property, on Witham Hill, which is kind of whereby I live and where maybe some of you live as well. So those are the names. And the silt loam and clay and silty clay loam, you saw those names when you were doing the soil texturing, the hand texturing. Those names showed up on there. Yeah?
I'll keep going my docs, and I just keep adding to it from there.
No, just write it down separately because you're going to put it into something else. I want you to have this information, but you don't need to write down more than just a few things, right? Just Amity Silt Loam, Bashaw Clay, and Witham silty clay loams. Just a few words, just jot it down. And then the next thing that I wanted you to do was to look at the, click on the name of each of these abundant soils. So let's start with Amity silt loam. And there were two things I wanted you to look at, but really there's only one of them that's critical. So one of them was the drainage class, which is just kind of interesting because if you think about those of you who play sports here at CV on the fields, you know that like as soon as it starts raining, things start getting kind of muggy pretty quickly. Our fields are like soggy. And that's because most of the soil in our area is what we call poorly drained. That means when rain falls on it, it doesn't like sink into the soil and then keep going down. It like sinks into the soil and then gets stuck. And then some of it pools up on top of the soil. And so you end up with these just messy, muddy, mucky puddles. That's not really critical for our work today though. This is. What I wanted you to do was look between 0 and 18 inches or so and find the name of the soil in that general vicinity. So what this is saying is, if you were to dig down in this Amity area, and a foot to a foot and a half, what you would find is soils that are categorized as silt loams. And so that's in the name of the soil, and we're just kind of double checking to make sure that that makes sense. And so this is what I want you to write down, silt loam. One of the kinds of soil that we're likely to find on campus is a silt loam, and we'll come back to that shortly. Then let's look at the Bashaw clay. And the clay, it is poorly drained, and when we look at its texture between 0 and 18 inches, clay, clay, clay. So no surprise, Bashaw clay is clay soils. Okay, so it's mostly those tiny little particles. And if you think about those of you who have done any kind of ceramics, whether it's here at CV or whether it's elsewhere, if we like look at like the stuff that Mr. Moses has in his classroom, and then imagine like pouring that all over the fields and running around on it. Actually, that's pretty similar to what we've got in some of those areas, right? Like the JV soccer field, by March, it's basically going to be like you're running around on the stuff that Mr. Moses uses in his studio. Like it's mostly actual clay. And then this last one, the silty clay loam. Let's see what that one looks like. So this is somewhat poorly drained again, and you don't have to write that down. It's fine, but here we can see the profile is a little bit different. From 0 to 4 inches, it's silty clay loam. From 4 to 12 inches, it's silty clay, and below that, it's clay. So what is happening here is that there's something that's kind of building up on top of a clay layer. And what's building up is not as clayey. It's got some other stuff in it. It's got some silt and some sand in there. So what we should expect is that most of the soil that we find here at CV, if it is natural, native soil that's been around here for hundreds of years, is either going to be silt loam or clay or silty clay loam. And those are the things that I wanted you to write down from this. Now, the reality is these soil surveys are documenting the soils that would be in an area if humans had never mucked about with those areas. And in a lot of places, that's pretty true. Like, there's a lot of places, even in the Crescent Valley area, where I would expect that the soils are they've been farmed and plowed and stuff like that, but mostly it's probably like pretty close to what you would expect to see. So this area across the street from Crescent Valley, these have all been plowed and people have like grown stuff on them, but mostly these are probably pretty close to native soils. All this farmland and forest land, again, most of this is probably just like soil that it has been relatively unaltered. They may have added some stuff to it here and there, certainly like fertilizers and stuff, but it's, you know, if it was clay 100 years ago, it's probably still clay now. But CV is different because they came in, and in order to build a school like this, you have to really alter the soil. You have to put stuff on top of it. They remove soil and put other kinds of things in, gravel, and, you know, so, because you can't just build a building like this on top of a, like, clay. If you do that, then what happens is that it sinks in. The winter would come and the whole building would just be like, so a lot of the soil that we're looking at is soil that was used to make campus a better place to have a school, for landscaping and for building purposes. So the soils that we're seeing on this web survey, these are these are like ideal natural soils. This is what it probably would have looked like 150 years ago, but they don't promise that it looks like that now. So at this point, with that information that I just gave you, if you didn't already have it, we now have two things that we can use to think about soil texture. One of them is the hand texturing that you did with that flow chart last week, and that you came up with a name for the soil that we were looking at. The next thing that we started was the soil settling, and we'll wrap that up today. But we just added to our texturing a online database. Now, you might have done the texturing wrong. The online database might be wrong as well. But we're going to try to hit our soil texture from multiple points and see if we can kind of converge on something. So we've got the hand texturing, we've got the online database. What I want to wrap up today is the settling, the jars that you used, and see if we can do some work with that to come up with a texture, and then we're going to put it all together in a document. So what I am going to ask you to do is make the final measurement with your soil texture, and what we need is to have heights of all three layers of your soil. So that means we need the height of the sand layer that settled out in like 2 minutes, the height of the silt layer that hopefully you got at the end of class yesterday, and the height, I don't know if this is where we got now, and the height of the clay layer, which is probably not settled out even today. Like it can take a while, but we're gonna just go with whatever you have and call it good. So you should have one measurement for your sand. You might have a couple different measurements for your silt, but you can kind of average those if you want, or if you only have one measurement, just use it. And then today, you're gonna add to that a measurement of clay. And that clay measurement is again, you're gonna make that in millimeters. So at this point, you should have, once you're done with that, you'll have 3 numbers for your soil settling jar. One for sand, one for silt, and one for clay. It's not gonna be perfect, but it'll be reasonably close. And then you're gonna take those numbers, and I'm gonna walk you through this, but I'll help you individually as well. You're gonna take all the information that you've gotten so far. The hand texturing, the stuff that I just got you from the online database, and your data from the soil settling. We're going to put it all into one document where we really try to figure out, like, what's the best way to characterize the soil texture here at CV. So for the soil settling, you're going to write down the thickness of the sand layer, the thickness of the silt layer, and the thickness of the height layer, of the clay layer, and then you're going to add those all up. That's going to be the total height of your soils. And then you're going to use that information to find the percentage of your soil that was sand, that was silt, and that was clay. And the way you'll do that is you'll take your sand height, divide it by the total height, and multiply by 100. That'll be your percent sand. You'll take your silt height, divide by the total height, multiply by 100. That'll be your silt percent. The clay height divided by the total height times 100. That's your clay percentage. And then the way that you're going to use that information to get a name is by using this soil texture triangle. And I will print this out. I meant to do this, I forgot, but I'll do this while you are making your measurement. You'll use this soil texture triangle to figure out the name. And the way that this works is it has three sides. One of those sides corresponds to the percent of silt, one corresponds to the percent of clay, and one corresponds to the percent of sand. The lines for the percent of sand run kind of from the upper left down to the lower right. The lines for the percent silt run from the upper right down to the lower left. And the lines for the percent clay are horizontal. And what you do is you find your percentages on here, and then you figure out where they meet. So like if you had 30% sand, that's here, so that's this line. And then you had 20% clay, that's here, that's this line. And then you had like 50% silt, that's here, that's this line. They all meet right here. And that's kind of in between a loam and a silty loam. So by finding those percentages and using this pyramid, you'll end up with a name. And the name is going to be one of those same kinds of names that you found in the hand texturing, the flowchart, and it's going to match up with the same kinds of names that we got from the online database. You might find that all three of your names are the same, or you might find that two of them are the same and one of them is different. You might find that they're all three different, but my guess is that when you look, what you'll see is that they're all sort of in the same general vicinity. Like, you might have a silty clay and a clay loam, but you can see those are all right here. So that kind of leads us to maybe thinking, okay, well, if we got like three different things, but they're all right here, maybe our soil is something like this, sort of on average. So I'm gonna go print this out so that you all have a copy that you can use. While I do that, I want you to make that last measurement of your clay, and you can, and then you can start completing this when I come back. And this is, I will work on this for not the rest of the period. We've got some other stuff that we need to do, but we'll work on this for maybe 15 or 20 minutes. And ideally, at the end of that time period, you will have the name from all three of the things that we looked at regarding texture, the flowchart, the settling, and the online database. And then you will have taken a look to see if there's any kind of overall summary that you could come up with. Like, what do you actually think the texture of our soil is? Okay. So that's going to be step one. Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay. So you can